Hey everyone, welcome to Simplilearn's YouTube channel. Today we'll learn data blending in Tableau. So before we begin, I would like to tell you guys that we have daily updates on multiple technologies. So if you're a tech geek in a continuous hunt for latest technological trends, then consider getting subscribed to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to hit that bell icon to never miss an update from Simplilearn. Now without further ado, let's begin with the one-point agenda for today's discussion, that is data blending in Tableau. So first up, what exactly is data blending? So data blending is a method for combining data from multiple sources. Data blending brings in additional information from a secondary data source and displays it with data from the primary data source directly in the view. So it might be a little complicated to understand, so let us make it a little simple. Let's imagine that you have data. Some of your data is present in your SQL database, and some of your data is present in Excel database or Excel worksheet, and some data is present in your cloud, say Salesforce. So your duty is to combine all your data from different sources, that is SQL, worksheet, Salesforce, and work on it. So you might have a question here. We already have joins, but joins and relations have their own limitations or drawbacks. So to cover that up or overcome those issues, Tableau has come up with data blending. Now let us take a step further and understand what exactly I meant by joining and relationships and data blending. So as we discussed before, the data blending is a method for combining data from multiple sources. Data blending brings in additional information from a secondary data source and displays it with data from the primary data source directly in the view. Yeah, this was a definition. You can take a screenshot of this and you can keep it for further reference. Now, as we discussed, there are some existing ways to combine your data, such as relationships, joins, etc., and then we have the data blending option. So first, relationships. So why exactly we do not prefer relationships in a few situations? Relationships cannot be formed between tables from data sources published to Tableau Server or Tableau Online. So relationships can't be formed based on calculated fields. When you use data blending, you can create calculation fields. Those are called as data blending calculations. Now next thing is the joins. Joins combine tables by adding more columns of data across similar row structures, and this can cause data loss or duplication. So when you use joins and create the relationship between multiple data sources or multiple tables, then there is a chance that the data can be duplicated. So just imagine that you have two different tables, and the two different tables have one common field, such as ID. So even a student ID has ID and employee ID has ID. If you use a join, then there are chances that you might get IDs of both employee and student. So that's a duplication, right? So to avoid that, you can go with a data blending. Now, data blending, unlike relationships or joins, never truly combine the data. Instead, blends query each data source independently. The results are aggregated to the appropriate level, then the results are presented visually together in the view. That's the reason why we use data blending. Now up next, we have the data blending example. Now this is where we get into the practical mode. We'll get back to our data first. We'll see what kind of data we are going to use for this particular example and what are we going to do with that data in the Tableau.
If getting your learning started is half the battle, what if you could do that for free? Visit SkillUp by Simplilearn. Click on the link in the description to know more.
So this is the Excel sheet which has the car sales dataset that we'll be using today. So this is one of the datasets, and we have another dataset. So we have another dataset which I personally created. So this is a little similar to the cars dataset. So I've created this dataset a little bit similar to the car sales dataset so that we can use this in the scenarios of data blending so that you can understand the concept in a much better way. So we have the following columns: the manufacturer, model, resale value, engine size, horsepower, wheelbase, fuel capacity, fuel efficiency, annual sales, and region. And when we come into the bike sales, we have the same kind of columns. So we have the manufacturer, model, engine size, horsepower, fuel capacity, fuel efficiency, annual sales, and zone. So you can see that this zone and region from the car sales dataset are similar, but the name is different. So there's a reason I've created a different name for this particular column, so that while we are working on Tableau data blending, we'll be actually blending these two columns as a custom blend. So this is why I've named this particular column as zone. And yeah, so far so good. I think we are good with the dataset. Now we'll get back to Tableau and start working on these datasets. Yeah, so now we are on Tableau. Let's since we're working on Excel, let's create the Excel. And yeah, here we got our Excel files. First, let's click in car. Yeah, there we go. We have the car dataset over here. And if you see, we have got some additional columns which we don't need. So the actual column we had was this. When I downloaded the dataset, this was the actual column which has sales into 1000. Actually, we had 16.919, which I multiplied here. Okay, so I had made some changes to the dataset in the Excel file, and I've hidden the actual dataset, so we don't need this one over here. So we'll do the hide option over here as well. So that's gone over here. Now let's kind of rename this as annual sales. Enter. And we don't need this F column, so this particular F column was created for a formula on Excel into sales into 1000, so we don't need this one as well. We'll remove this, hide, and the resale value, and another F1 here. We'll remove this. Now engine size 1, why don't we rename that as engine size? Done. And do we have any other extra things? No. And annual sales too, yeah, that's gone as well. So the region, manufacturer, model, annual sales, resale value, engine size, another engine size. Okay, this was a problem. So when you look into the engine size over here, okay, and here, so when you look at the engine size here, this is the actual engine size from the datasets, the original one. So it is represented in the form of liters. So basically the car engines are always represented in the form of liters. So 1.8 liter engine, 3.5 liter engine. But when you come into bikes, they represent the engine size in the form of cc's, that is cubic centimeters. So the bikes have 650cc engine, 1030 or 1340cc engine. Yeah, that's how we represent the engine size in bikes. So to make things similar, I have created the engine size in cc in the form of cc over here. You can see that over here. So 1.8 is equals to 100 or 1800 cubic centimeters. So we don't need this particular column here, so we'll eliminate this or we'll hide this. So far so good. We have horsepower, engine size, resale value, fuel capacity, fuel efficiency, region. Yeah, everything is fine now. So now the next step is to add the second data set or the second data source. So you can do that by selecting this particular icon over here and select a new data source, or there is another way. You can enter into your worksheet, and you don't have to enter into your worksheet. You can do that from here as well. You can select the data and add new data source. So these are the various options. You can select a new data source from here, or you can select a new data source from here, or if you're on the sheet, then you can go again to the data section and you can select the data source from here as well. Or you also have a shortcut. So when you see it, so you have a shortcut here which says control. Okay, sorry. So you can read it right on the right hand side of this particular dialog box, control D. You can directly press Ctrl D and add your new data source as well. So now we'll add the new data source. So since another dataset that you're working on is also an Excel file, we'll select the Excel file. So that was bike sales, and yeah, there you go. We have a bike sales dataset right on my screen right now. So in here as well, you can see some excess or unnecessary columns. So we'll remove that as well. So we'll hide this, we'll hide this, we'll hide this as well. Now we have engine size, horsepower, fuel capacity, efficiency. Okay, we have our annual sales here. So I've changed a few numbers in this particular annual sales column. These are not accurate. So I've created some random numbers just so that they're different from the car sales. So yeah, so far so good. We have this zone over here, the regions column from, yeah, let me show you that. Let's go to the sheet. Yeah, so when you see cars, we have region over here. Okay, so when you get into cars, we have the region over here which has the north, south, east, west, and similarly when you get into bikes, we have the zone which has the north, south, east, west, etc., etc. So we are now going to create the blending between the two data sets. So we have the data set over here which is the bike, and we have another data set over here which is the car. So to create a blend, let's get into data, and you can see the edit blend relationships row in the dialog box, or the option in the dialog box. So remember, when you just have one data source, just imagine that you only had a cars data set, only one data set. Or let us remove this. How do you remove this? Close. So we just have one data set over here, which is the bikes data set. So now when you click on data, you don't have that option. See it? You don't have that option, edit blend relationships. But when you get a different data source, so we have car sales over here. Now let's get back our okay, did we had the cars over there? Sales bike. We have the bike sales over here. Now let's get back our cars data set. Yeah. Okay, sorry. We can make the changes again, not a problem. So we'll remove this. We'll rename it. On this note, let me tell you guys, if you are getting some errors, or if you're getting some, kind of troubles while you're learning, it's a sign that you're trying your best. So we have Simplilearn community, which has the solutions to your problems. So if you have any problems while you're learning, then you can directly, post your query over there, and our team of experts will be really happy to help you out with the solutions. So we have our annual sales over here, and another annual sales which we don't need, so we'll hide that. We have the manufacturer, model, annual sales, resale value, engine size. So I think we don't need this engine size, which is in the liters. Now we'll rename this as engine size. Great. Yeah, we were done. So we'll get back to our sheet. Now when you hover over to data, and you can find the data blend relationship option over here. So this happens when you have multiple sources only. Now let's click that, and you can see we have the automatic option, and Tableau has automatically found a data blend option for the columns which have the same names. So we have manufacturer, model, and manufacturer and model in both bikes and cars. So we also have the same names for annual sales, engine, fuel efficiency, horsepower also. So they are in the measures section. That's the reason the Tableau has ignored them. So, and remember that we have regions in cars and zone in bikes, but we can't find that relationship over here because they have different column names. To get a blend between those columns, we can always choose custom. So when you choose custom, okay, we don't have a zone over here. You need to make some changes, I guess. Yeah, we need to press add icon, and from add you can see the region from the cars dataset and zone from bikes dataset. Select OK, and then you can find a blend relationship between the region from cars and zone from bikes. Now we have the blend successfully applied. Let's select OK, and we are done. So let's begin with our operations. So currently we are in bike sales dataset. So if we start the operations on bike sales dataset, for example, let's choose zone into columns and annual sales into rows. So you can see a little tiny blue tick over here. So this particular little tiny blue tick represents that this has now become your primary data set or primary data source because you're currently working on that particular data set. Now if you remove the zone and annual sales, and again if your sheet is completely empty, and if you enter into the cars data set and again choose regions and regions onto columns, again the same thing, drag the annual sales into rows. Like I'm just showing you, if there is some operations happening with the particular data set, then you can find the blue tick icon which says that you're working on this particular data set. So that's how we see it. Now, so this is how you find the sales happening in that particular region. And yeah, we can create another sheet, and now we'll see which model has the biggest engine. Now let's kind of sort it. So Viper has the biggest engine, Dodge Viper. Yeah, a muscle car of America. Now let's create a different sheet. Now let's get back into bikes dataset. Which is the most fuel efficient bike? Row and model. So now, according to the dataset what I created, Multistrada 950 has the biggest mileage. That's great. Okay, it shouldn't give 50. Maybe I think I entered some wrong value. Yeah, SV650. Or we can actually take a manufacturer over here. And so SV650 belongs to, let's sort it. Where is SV650? Yeah, SV650 belongs to Suzuki. Great. So SV650 has a good mileage next to Multistrada 950. So this is how you can use sheets and data from different datasets. Now moving forward, let's create some data blending calculations. For that, let's create a new sheet. Now we have created a new sheet. Now let's rename it as Data Blend Calculations. Now we have successfully renamed our sheet as Data Blending Calculations. Now we are in car sales. So let's drag the manufacturer into columns and sales, annual sales of the manufacturer into columns. So we have the report of annual sales of different car manufacturers over here, Ford leading, and we have Porsche, Subaru, Suzuki, Hyundai, etc., etc. Now let's get back to bike sales and drag the same annual sales from the bikes dataset into rows. So as you can see on my screen, you have the annual sales for cars and bikes together on one single screen. So here we have Suzuki as well, which is a bike maker, and Ford, etc., etc. are the car makers. So other than bikes, we have another 28 nulls which do not belong to the bike section. Now our aim is to create a new calculated field which is about the data blending calculation. So you can see that a little icon over here which represents the blend icon, and you can always select that to stop the blending, and you can click on that to use it as a linking field. So that's how you can use the blend icon. Now we are about to create a new calculated field, so you can right click and create a calculated field, or you can always choose the icon over here and create a calculated field. So now we have the calculated field over here. Let's rename it as Data Blend Calculation. Now we have successfully renamed our calculated field as Data Blend Calculation. Now we'll find the sum of sales happening in cars and bikes. So for that, we'll be using the summation of sales or annual sales. Now we have the annual sales sum of bikes. Now we'll add the cars one. For that, I'll be selecting plus and sum of annual sales of cars. So you can see that we have two sums over here, so we don't need that second sum, so we'll eliminate that. So we have another bracket over here which we don't need, so we'll eliminate that as well. So now the calculation field is valid. Let's click apply and OK. So now you can see a newly created calculation field over here with the icon equals to hashtag, which says that it's a calculated field. Now let's drag this calculated field into the rows icon, and you can see the sum of both sales happening in this particular segment here, which shows you the sum of sales of both cars and bikes. Now you can see that we have 28 nulls over here, right? So we should be having all the, when you're calculating the sum of annual sales of both the data sets, then you should be having something over here. So for that, we need to make a little addition over here. That's a function zn. Yeah. Now after adding zn, okay, we lost the sum, so we need to add the sum again. And sum of annual sales, or we can just add it over here. Okay, this should be pretty good. Now we need to add another zn over here and another sum over here. Close the bracket. Yeah, this should be good. Yeah, the calculation is valid now. Let's add apply, and okay, now we have the annual sales of both cars and bikes and Suzuki combined, BMW combined as well. So that's how we do the Tableau data blending operations. So with that, let's get back to the presentation mode again. Now the next part in our tutorial today is the data blending versus joins. So what are the differences between data blending and joins? So this particular short data table should explain you the differences between them. So in data blending, the data gets aggregated first, then the data gets combined. But where in joins, the data will be joined first or combined first, then the data is aggregated. And the second difference is when we use data blending, the data set is from different data sources. But when you use joins, you need to make sure that the data is coming from a single source. Now when we come into the data blending again, you can only use left join. So you can consider data blending as an advanced version of joins, but only the left join can be applied. But when we come into joins, we have the different types of joins like left joint, right joint, etc., right? We have different types of joins. So that's how we have a difference between joins and data blending. The fourth difference is data can be available in different level of granularity in data blending. So the level of granularity can be maintained at a different level when you have, or different levels when you use data blending, but when you use joins, all the granularity of all the data should be maintained at a same level. And the last difference between the both is data blending sends separate query to each dataset and aggregates, then performs blending. And the last difference between the both is when you use data blending, the data blending sends separate query to each dataset, then aggregates them, and finally performs data blending operations. But when you use joins, the queries will be sent to the data at a row level. So with that, let's enter into the next segment where we will discuss about the limitations of data blending. So the limitations of data blending are as follows. Data blending compromises the query execution speed in high granularity. So when you have the higher rate of granularity on your datasets, then obviously the execution speed will be compromised. Next, while sorting a calculated field that uses blended data, that field is not listed in the sorted field drop-down dialog box. And the last limitation is cube data sources can be used only as a primary data source to the blend data in Tableau and cannot be used as a secondary data source. So these were the limitations of data blending in Tableau. Now with that, we have come to an end of this particular tutorial on data blending in Tableau. So if you have any queries regarding the topics discussed in this particular tutorial, or if you feel that we missed out anything important, then please feel free to let us know in the comment section below. Our experts will be delighted to hear it from you and will be available 24/7 to solve all your queries. Thank you for watching, stay safe and keep learning.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simplilearn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.